Hello and welcome to the Cinementalist podcast for cinementalist.com. My name's Andy. Sitting next to me is Floki, our bearded dragon mascot, and sitting opposite me is Liam. How's it going, my friend?
Yeah, I'm sound, mate. How about you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you.
Good.
Rainy and miserable out there again. We're back in England.
Yeah, it's just like, as we said, like a couple of weeks ago, it was just mad. It was like a furnace in here. Last week, it was sort of a bit middling, and now it's just like total.
I always imagine I've never been to Maine, but I've always been told Maine weather and English weather is very, very similar.
Well, I think New England in general, really, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, they're called New England for a good reason because, like, they are just the state's equivalent of us. They're all miserable fuckers out there as well. So, that's why
Apologies to anyone from Maine listening.
No.
It's a solidarity thing.
No. I get any New Englander I've ever met. I've gotten on with them like a house on fire.
Is it the English attitude as well, where it's just that uber cynicism?
It's the English attitude, but with like get away from the fucking car. It's it's the kind of accent that a lot of people associate with Massachusetts, etc. But with the just with the sort of resplendently unpleasant Great British attitude. So it's quite nice.
There's only three things I know about Maine, actually, which is supposedly they have the same weather as us. You get very good seafood. Maine lobster is something I've heard about.
Yep.
And Stephen King.
And Stephen King.
Those are my three main facts.
And they go, yeah.
Do they hit?
Yeah, they do. They go,
yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Anybody listening from Maine, if you are still listening and haven't immediately turned off the podcast, please do write in. Email us.
No, Maine's great. Yeah, wonderful. I mean, do you remember the South Park episode with the guy? It's like the parody of the Pet Cemetery, like Jed or Jeb, and he's like the guy with the proper Mainer. He's like, in the old days, you used to have to buy your milk from the store. Yep, and then you'd come home and you'd find the milkman banging your wife. It's just,
another reason to visit. There you go. Right. Okay. Let's. What do we? Yeah, we do a film podcast, don't we?
I think so. Apparently,
it's a film and TV podcast. We've got reviews and everything. But first, if I get this correct, I believe we normally do the news. We should probably do some of that.
Please do inform.
Let's crack on. First article here from cinemablend.com about Brendan Fraser.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't heard from in some time. I'll read the article here. It says, the last several years have been good to Brendan Fraser on the television front, thanks to his roles as James Fletcher Chase in the FX limited series Trust and Cliff Steele / Robot Man in HBO Max's Doom Patrol. But lately, Fraser's also had a solid run with movies too. He recently appeared in Steven Soderbergh's No Sudden Move. He was added to the cast of Darren Aronofsky's upcoming movie The Whale. And now it's been announced he'll be taking part in 2 more movies, including Martin Scorsese's next flick, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Brendan Fraser's going to be in Killers.
Everyone's going to be in Killers of the Flower Moon, as best as I can tell.
Oh, I bet it fucking pays off, man. I've been excited about that. It's one of the, Killers of the Flower Moon is still my movie. It's like, when is this bastard coming out? Because now because for a small amount of time it was June, but now we're kind of solidified on June. Mm-hmm. It's still way, way, way past schedule, but for obvious reasons. But
yeah, we covered it on the news so often I've forgotten what the date is now. October, I think.
I think it's like September over here, October in the States, which is bizarre.
That's really bizarre.
I mean, because Denis Villeneuve is Quebecois, so he is North American. So why it isn't coming out in North America before here, I don't know.
Yeah, very rare it's that way around. It's normally an American premiere first.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a peculiar one. But yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, I mean, the story is fascinating. And you've got De Niro as the villain.
Jesse Plemons, as we covered.
Jesse Plemons as the protagonist, like Leo DiCaprio in a very pivotal role.
Well, actually, the article continues here. Set in 1920s Oklahoma, Killers of the Flower Moon follows the FBI's investigation into the murders of several members of the wealthy Osage tribe. Fraser is reportedly set to play attorney W.S. Hamilton, so count on him taking part in the courtroom portion of this movie. Unlike No Sudden Move, which premiered exclusively on HBO Max, Killers of the Flower Moon will be released both on streaming and in theaters, with Apple TV Plus filling in the former category and Paramount Pictures distributing the movie to big screens worldwide. So yeah, this was that whole thing with Scorsese essentially teaming up with Apple on the streaming front. So it's going to be available, well, actually, you know what? I might be the only person in the world, I feel like I'm the only person in the world at this point, that's got an Apple TV subscription. I know that can't be true, but I've been chatting to people and they're like, yeah, I don't have Apple TV.
Well, I don't have one.
No.
I
Well, if you have one, you can get Killers of the Flower
But you
Moon,
informed me of like at least a couple of things on it that are actually very much worth a go.
A couple of things, yeah. There's some of the Apple original productions are pretty good, and they do seem to be gathering up the streaming rights to some other stuff as well. Although I do have a particular deep-seated hatred for Apple as a company. But I'm a TV critic, so I need to have these subscriptions, But apparently, I'm going to get access to Killers of the Flower Moon.
Merde.
Deadline has also reported that Brendan Fraser has been brought aboard for the comedy movie Brothers, which is being directed by Palm Springs' Max Barbacow. No plot details for this project have been released yet, including who Fraser is playing, but is currently filming in Atlanta, and the cast includes Glenn Close, Peter Dinklage, and Josh Brolin, with the latter two also producing. Macon Blair and Ethan Cohen, or I assume that's supposed to be Ethan, it's written as Ethan Cohen, wrote the Brothers script.
Oh, Macon Blair and Ethan Cohen.
Yeah, I'm presuming there isn't an Ethan Cohen and it's just a spelling mistake on the article. Get on that, Cinema Blend.
Yeah. Interesting, man.
That's Brendan Fraser is coming back in a big way. Actually, I was reading up a little while ago, actually, about why he sort of disappeared out of the film business. And it's pretty horrible what happened to him, actually. He got into a really bad alimony settlement with his ex-wife. He had, I believe it was 3 children with her. And he had to pay, he was ordered to pay between alimony restitutions and child support, $900,000 a year for, I think it was 15 years. And that just sort of wiped him out financially. Yeah, it was just like one of the worst alimony deals you could possibly get. I don't know the inner details of the case, but apparently, and very unsurprisingly, that sort of pushed him into quite a deep, dark depression.
Yeah.
It took him a while to sort of get back on the horse, so to speak. But there has been this internet campaign because he was so well loved as an actor to see him cast in more things. And that seems to be becoming the case. So good for him.
Yeah, good for him, man. That's good.
Speaking of Ethan Cohen, actually, or Eaton Cohen, as he will now be known on this podcast for the rest of the time, article from Vanity Fair. After decades of Oscar-winning, genre-bending work as a writing and directing duo, Joel and Ethan Cohen may be parting ways creatively. Composer Carter Burwell, who has scored nearly every Coen brothers film, suggested during a recent interview that the latter sibling may be retiring from the director's chair. The composer, who's worked on Fargo and No Country for Old Men, said that the Coens have a ton of scripts they've written together that are sitting on various shelves, adding, "I hope maybe they get back to some of those because I've read some of them and they're great, but I don't know. We're all at an age where we could retire, and I don't think that's exactly what's going to happen. It's a wonderfully unpredictable business." Apparently, after Ethan and Joel finished the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Ethan wanted to step back from directing, and that's why we haven't heard much from the Coen brothers in the meantime. They've gone on to do separate projects. So no one's quite sure if they're going to be working together again, which would be a shame, I think, because we're big Coen brothers fans.
They're a fantastic partnership. I absolutely love them. I think they've made some phenomenal films. So, I hope that's not the case, but, Godspeed, whatever the case is.
Yeah. Apparently, going further into the article here, the brothers even spoke about retirement back in 2016, with Joel sharing that they originally intended to quit after 10 movies a la Quentin Tarantino. Ethan added, "It gets too alarming thinking about that, how many you've done. And in ways, you're not even aware if you're repeating yourself. You think you're like an old musician. Now he's just on the road because he doesn't know anything else and he's just doing an oldies show." So yeah, I don't really know what's going on with the Coen brothers stuff. I know they've been doing like production on some TV work and sort of executive producer and that sort of thing, but who knows if we'll ever see the duo together for another irreverent, quirky and kind of awesome film.
They're both in their, near enough, they're both in their mid-60s now, so maybe they're just...
Massively successful,
maybe just had enough.
Rich. Yeah, there's got to be a point where you turn around and go... I think Quentin Tarantino's always banged on about this, hasn't he? That he doesn't want to be that director where if you look at his body of work in years to come, he doesn't want to be one of those directors where the last couple of films are subpar. He wants to go out on a high. I know he was discussing recently that he thought he might even end it after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because he really liked how that film came out. He thought, actually, I know it's my 9th movie, but actually that'd be a really good one to end on because it's kind of exactly how I wanted it.
Well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me is fabulous. So that's not a bad climax.
And it's sort of self-referential about the golden age of Hollywood and the film industry.
I think I've said before, it's still very contentious when I say it to people. For me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the best film he's made in the 21st century. And I get a lot of people going, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" It's like, yeah, I know, yeah, they're pretty good. There's nothing against them, but that film is absolutely top drawer for me out of everything he's made like 2000 onwards. So that would be a nice coda.
Mm.
But, but let's see. Maybe he has another really cool one in the bag.
Legacy is a funny old thing.
It is, yeah. It really is. Here's
a website that we've never, ever referenced before in the news section of this podcast because it's spacenews.com. This is an article entitled New Details of Russian Movie in Space Emerge as Producers Seek Funding. This is new information has emerged about the Russian movie The Challenge, planned to be filmed partly on the International Space Station in October. During a recent funding pitch to the Russian Federal Fund for Social and Economic Support of Domestic Cinematography, executive producer Konstantin Ernst of the TV station First Channel and director Klim Shipenko, who plans to travel to the ISS, shared fresh details about the script and production logistics involved. Shipenko revealed the script is still being fine-tuned, but the plot involves a cosmonaut who suffers a cardiac arrest during a spacewalk, and although he survives, he will require surgery to ensure he can handle the Soyuz return to Earth. A female cardiac surgeon named Xenia has to be sent to the ISS to perform the procedure with only a few weeks to prepare for the trip. Shipenko explained that he had plans to shoot 35 to 40 minutes of screen time aboard the ISS during a 12-day stay, and he will combine numerous roles, including director, camera operator, and makeup artist. The role of Xenia will be played by either Yulia Peresild or, Peresild. Or,
Persil.
Yulia Persil.
Daz. Sorry.
Or Alonia Mordovina, who were chosen from around 3,000 actresses who submitted online applications for the part late last year. Both are currently being trained at the Yuri Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center. What do we think about all this, filming on the International Space Station? It's very likely to be a huge gimmick, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. It's an interesting gimmick.
I don't really see any of
I don't care if the film takes place inside, like, I don't care if you shove a camera up someone's arsehole and then digitally insert characters in the interior. Like, you can do that and it's like, well, bully for you, that's original.
Only production people will really get off on that.
Yeah, is the narrative. Because do you know what fucking annoys me? Well, I don't want to go off too tangential, but I don't think I've said this before. I just want to say it now. Like, when I remember, like, Roger Ebert, right, in one of his reviews, he said, like, someone once had a go at him saying, like, you movie buffs always talk about the story and you never talk about, you never focus on the visuals of the film. It's like, yeah, but like cinematography, brilliant cinematography or brilliant location design is important. But if you had the most beautiful looking film in the world, if the story and the characters fucking suck, why give a shit?
Yeah,
it's like, well, it's pretty to look at, but that's all it's got going for it. Then fuck it, I'm not interested.
I just don't see the value. I mean, I'm a big lover of production values and all that kind of stuff. I love all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I mean, I have a background in production. I've got a real appreciation for the movie magic, so to speak. But I don't see any advantage to actually filming in space versus filming on a soundstage. Like, I mean, if you look at Gravity, for example, that looks, for all intents and purposes, like you are in space. Yeah. And that film's getting on a little bit now. Like, you can do it, on Earth for a lot less money. And let's face it as well, a lot less danger, because space is still very dangerous. It's purely there to be a film shot in space, isn't it?
But the
only motivation for doing it, so you can have that as the.
In your
as the
opinion,
thing.
not like just in Gravity is a phenomenal looking film. But is it narratively brilliant? Does it have utterly outstanding performances?
I really liked it, actually. It's got quite a simple plot, to be honest. But I like the whole sort of, I don't want to give anything away about the film, but I like the sort of the fake out involving George Clooney. And I like the fact that it was, it really had you on the edge of your seat because it made space as dangerous as space is. A fire is a huge hazard, and this Sandra Bullock attempting to escape from all this. Very, very, and I love the way it didn't use sound as well. I mean, I'm a sci-fi buff, so I'm totally used to spaceships going zoom, phasers going ping, and all this kind of stuff. Making it silent though, as space actually is, actually made it eerier and more tense, which I thought was really, really cool. But it was clever production techniques to mimic what things would look like and how they would behave in space. It can be done. I don't see any advantage to actually doing it there other than getting a lot of press, which is obviously what this seems to be. We could be wrong here. It could be an amazing narrative piece of work that's going to make us come out the other end of it bawling. And Tom Cruise keeps threatening to shoot in space as well. As far as I'm concerned, space can keep him.
I know we're talking about outer space, but it reminds me of when quite a little while ago now, when I reviewed that movie Sator, because then I said that with Sator, cinematography and sound design absolute 10 out of 10, and I still retain that opinion. It's wonderful to look at, and the soundscape is fantastic. But as a film overall, I rate it probably a 1 or 2 generously, because it's boring, disjointed drivel. There still needs to be a story. There still needs to be narrative momentum. There still needs to be... I don't care how fucking amazing it looks.
And is it just a way to get a load of funding that you wouldn't get ordinarily as well? Because anybody investing is then going to be a part of the project that ends up being the first film in space. It's a much bigger draw for an investor than we're about to shoot a small movie that's going to look like it's in space.
Yeah.
To have you going, you can tell it to your billionaire mates when you go on their yacht. Oh yeah, I bet you're not funding the first film in space, are you? There's nothing billionaires like more than bragging rights. Oh, I'm definitely funding this. Are you funding? No, you can't fund that, can you? Yeah, I've been involved in that side of the business as well, and it all gets a bit... I don't know. I feel like we're sort of rubbishing something before we've seen it, but it just does seem to be a really big...
Well, no, I think we both hope that it's not an example of that, but it's just when I get frustrated with people who go, this film is shot in this particular place. It's like, yeah, okay, fucking whoop-de-doo. Like, but, is it actually going to be interesting on a human level?
We will find out. We
Yeah.
will see if they get their funding. There you
Yes,
go. If anything, the Cinementalist podcast has now advertised these guys. So, we're rooting for you.
Yeah. Any exposure, inadvertent or not, don't you forget it.
Yeah, I just feel like we've endorsed this enterprise that we're not even making any money off of, and
We just get carried away.
against our principles, man. Yeah, fuck off. Anyways, let's get on with some film reviews. I believe you have a couple this week.
I do indeed.
Is the first one an M. Night Shyamalan?
Yes, I went to the old pictures a few nights ago, and I watched the latest instalment by M. Night Shyamalan. Oh, God, fucking M. Night Shyamalan, man. I was actually talking to someone about this earlier, like The Sixth Sense, solid. Unbreakable, solid. Most of his other films, he grounds himself quite strongly and quite powerfully in certain, thematic cuffs, but then he just seems to, he keeps wriggling free. He keeps wriggling in and out of the grasp. I mean, and the thing with old is that, okay, like, no, I won't like, so, okay, not the
You're
thing
doing the
with
review
old.
backwards. Well, what's old about?
Yeah. No, okay, so old, the latest one by M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, this is based on a French graphic novel called Sandcastle. And so we're introduced to the Kappa family. This is Gael Garcia Bernal, who's an actor I've always quite liked. And Vicky Creeps, who's a Luxembourgish actress. She was Daniel Day-Lewis's other half in Phantom Thread, which was another Daniel Day-Lewis's retirement film, essentially, which was fantastic. And Vicky Creeps was the young Luxembourgish woman who played his wife in it. She's also incredibly good. So Bernal and Creeps, they play a married couple, Guy and Priska Kappa, and they take their 2 kids, their son Trent and their daughter Maddox, who were respectively 6 and 11. They whisked them away to this absolutely gorgeous and very, very high-end beach resort. I don't think it's actually specified in the film where it actually is, but I know the film was shot in the Dominican Republic, and it fucking looks like it. Beautiful, beautiful. Talking about locales, very, very...
Setting, lovely.
Absolutely gorgeous setting, lovely. Yeah, so they're there, and the 2 young kids are sort of, they're really, really excited to be on holiday. And but Guy and Priska, they've been having problems. It's not elucidated till further on in the film exactly why they've been having some marital strife, but they're not in the best place. And they keep alluding to the fact that they have a revelation for the children, but they wanted to give them a really nice special holiday before they had to tell them something that they probably do not want to hear. So here they are. The 2 tykes are really excited about getting down to the beach and just having a really great time and just mixing with people. And you also have the Kappa family, who are essentially they're the focal family of the beach, but you also have... another family which is commandeered by older, I've always liked Rufus Sewell, Dark City, and the Rufus Sewell, the British actor.
I'm trying to place him. I'll find
Sort of
him.
like unconventionally handsome. There's always something quite sinister about him.
Oh, yeah, I know the dude. I got
Yeah,
him.
and I don't mean that offensively. I mean there's always something quite sinister about him. I mean that complimentarily. So I hope that if he is listening, which he evidently
Definitely
won't
isn't.
be, he doesn't take it offensively because big up the roof. But yeah, he is also there with his own family. He's got his mother who is, slightly demented, to use some archaic parlance, and his very spoilt and unpleasant trophy wife and their little girl. And he's a very, very stressed physician. And he also suffers from some sort of quite, bad psychiatric ailment, and he's been trying to get away from it all. So these two families, they're trying to get some R&R in this wonderful resort, and the manager informs them that if you guys really, really want to make this holiday something special, there is a private beach, and this is impossible to get to without the route that is driven on by our selected guides. You won't be able to walk to it because it is behind, and then it is basically at the forefront of an enormous, it's virtually 1,000-mile rock formation that is like a sort of gigantic cliff that just keeps on receding. You'll never get to it without one of our hotel employees giving you a special drive along these routes that only we're privy to. But I recommend it for guests that I really like, and you will have utmost privacy. It's absolutely beautiful. You will not be disturbed. You will never forget it for the rest of your lives. So, if you're interested, just say yes, and I'll make all the arrangements. They are very interested, both families. But Burnout and Creeps go, well, yeah, okay, let's go for it. Let's go for it. This sounds interesting. Let's give the kids something especially nice to do before we have to reveal what it is we have to reveal to them. So, the Kappa family and Rufus Sewell's family are all bundled onto a sort of like a little mini, I guess we call it a mini bus. I think they probably call it something different in the States. I don't know, like a people carrier, like a fucking van with loads of seats in it.
It's like that train guard tower in your review of Quiet Place 2.
What was I going on about there? It's still anyone's guess. But so the Kappas are in the van, and then Rufus Sewell's mob get in the van, and they're like, well, this place can't be that secluded. We were told not to tell anyone about it. And it's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's allegedly clandestine, but these two families who are strangers up until this point are on this private minibus. And who is the hotel employee driving them? None other than, can you guess?
No, go on.
M.NIGHT Shyamalan himself.
Oh, no, he didn't put himself in again, did he?
Yes, he put himself in again.
What was that film where he put himself in as an amazing writer that had this incredible novel that was going to change the world?
The Lady in the Water?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and the entire audience was sick.
Paul Giamatti, yeah, Lady in the Water, I believe.
Well, not even a Mary Sue. It's directly putting yourself in as an amazing writer. This time he's an amazing minibus driver.
So M.NIGHT Shyamalan, who is just I think he's just credited as hotel employee or something. So he's very coy and modest.
Just an extra, guys, honest. Act natural.
So he drives these two families down to the beach. And so they get to the beach. And it is an utterly gorgeous beach. There is something extraordinarily breathtaking. One thing you've got to give this film, it's well shot. There is something very, very extraordinarily breathtaking about the locale. It does look absolutely fabulous, these locations in the Dominican where they've shot it. And so they make their way down this sort of twisty, windy, quite precarious walkway, and they come out into this beachfront. There's another man on the beach who we come to. I won't give away too much about him, but just to give you a clue to the strangeness of this film, this guy, when he's asked of his name, he introduces himself as mid-sized sedan.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Some sort of rapper name or something. But so sorry, kind of rambling. Essentially, the nucleus is this. They're on this beach and they're trying to relax amid their various intrapersonal and later interpersonal strifes. They find out that this beach that they're on, for some reason or another, rapidly accelerates your age. In fact, when it gets to the mathematical deductions of it, when you're on this beach for a day, you would have aged about 50 years. 1 hour is basically a couple of years of your life, 2-3 years of your whole life.
Okay.
So rapidly accelerating in age. So the children who start the day as 6 and 11-year-olds, they, within a few hours, they look like they're about 17. And everyone starts really freaking out. And they just, it's like, what the fuck are we going to do? What does this mean for us? How do we get out? Every time they try to escape, every time they try to walk to find a way out, they go into this bizarre sort of pool cave and they black out in what looks like quite a painful manner. And they just desperately scramble to search for an exit, and with what one would fairly presume is sort of requisite the crisis, not only the immediate panic about virtually instantaneous onset of death, but also conceptually, if one were made to live out one's life in one day, the kind of existential philosophical ramifications and considerations that could hold. So, old. The existential tangent, that concept about being made to live out one's life in a minimum of a day if you're lucky. Shyamalan approaches a lot of that in a really, really interesting way that actually proves to be pretty poignant for a fair amount of the time. And it is bolstered by there is some. I can't fault the director of photography, Michael Zalakis. He did some really, really great work here. He makes the film look fantastic. The film does look fantastic, and it does have some really cool soundscaping. There's not faulting the design. The way it deals with children who start the day as they're not even 10 years old yet, and then they're having to deal with being 17 years old, 27 years old, 35, etc., 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 and not only physically accelerating, but their mind catches up. So there is this freaky, devastating reconciliation with the fact that you're growing into an adult over the course of one day, but you're not doing it in the proper way. And there's a little bit of a hackneyed explanation as to why the adults they're still aging, but they're not aging as rapidly as the little nippers are. There's some hokum in there about
hand waving on that one. Yeah,
there's some hokum in there about how their cells are blah 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 blah.
Sure. Okay.
And the way that it executes, its thematic kind of musings on the fears of aging and fears of life slipping you by and not having enough time to do what you wanted to do, and the importance of memories and why memories are so focal to meaning making. A lot of that, it touched me. I thought it was actually quite powerful. It sat with me really well. But outside of that, like, this film has just got a fucking endless array of problems. It's like Shyamalan just does his Shyamalama ding dong twists.
There's always that last minute turnaround thing that is so predictable now, you just wait for it.
A really, really shitty, an awful last minute surprise that just destabilizes any power that might have preceded it, just completely destabilizes it. So the thing with Old is that the ending completely ruins it for me, but I love the cinematography. I think a lot of the themes are very, very well approached, and a lot of critics have they've taken pot shots at the acting in it, because a lot of the acting, a lot of the delivery is quite weird. There's something sort of, there's something a bit unnatural about some of the performances, but in a way that diverges from a lot of critics who thought, well, that's just bad acting. I found myself, when I went to see it, thinking, this really complements the sort of impossibly nightmarish feel of this movie. There's something that...
oh, really? So it actually worked for you?
It did work for me, yeah. There's something very offbeat and strange and unnatural about a lot of the acting in it, but for me personally, that I don't think it was bad. I didn't find the acting unconvincing. I found it unusual. And then upon sort of further deliberation about it, I thought, well, this is a phenomenally unusual situation. This is the kind of situation that would just make just about any average person just completely lose their minds in ways that they wouldn't be able to envisage unless they were they wouldn't know what it was like unless it was completely empirical, you know. And I'm thinking, like, you know, because even when you conceptualize it, it is a really, really terrifying and sad and disturbing thing to propose. And I actually found that a lot of the way that it was handled, the performances of Rufus Sewell and pretty much everyone, I think it actually complemented the real primally scary, surrealist, just horror and chaos of the situation. So Older's got really, really, really good things about it, really good things, but the ending is fucking shit. So it depends.
So it's another M. Night Shyamalan.
No. So yeah. So, but if you want to, at least for the most, if you want to have your thoughts provoked in what I consider to be an effective way, the film will do that for a generous amount of time, and then just about 10 minutes before the end, just turn it off and just pretend that's the ending, and then you could maybe
works with so many of his films.
And then maybe you could say it's a 7 out of 10 as opposed to a 4.
Okay.
You know, so. Yeah, it's a tough one, that, because was Old a load of shit? It wasn't a load of shit, but the ending just about writes it off. It's very frustrating. Why, M. Night? Why? Why are you such a fucking pain in the arse? Why do you do this to us? You nearly have it in the bag, and then you're just like, yeah, but I can't stop masturbating over it. I need to fucking...
I thought he did... I got very, very annoyed with him with Split.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought Split was a fantastic example.
I thought Split was an excellent film right up until the last 5 minutes where he does the whole diner reveal thing, and I was just like, why did you do that? The film was completely finished. Why bother?
This is it, yeah. Like, I mean, I think that Split is just all across the board the vastly superior work in terms of execution to Old. But yeah, it is the same thing. It's like just many parts of the film where I was, well, this is really, really well done. This is intelligent. This is thoughtful. This is different. It's like, nope. Thank you, M. Night. Thank you so much. And then I watched, and I think you were quite surprised when I told you this, I tucked into F9.
The new Fast and the Furious film. Yes, I was very surprised you went for this. You normally leave this sort of thing to me. But no, go on.
I know.
I'm intrigued.
By Justin Lin. Oh God, the Fast and the Furious franchise. What is it, 20 years old now?
It feels like it. It must be, yeah.
It's got to be, 2000, 2001 was
I think 2001, the first one, yeah.
So I'm assuming that people out there are au fait with the general setup.
I think the minimum of plot description we'll do here, because I can only imagine, I know this is prejudging of me, but having seen most of the Fast and the Furious franchise, I imagine there's not very much plot.
No, well, I actually went to, I can't remember which film I was seeing, but it was a year and a bit ago when I saw the trailer for this in the cinema, and I still said to people, this is probably the most fucking ridiculous, high-octane, batshit crazy trailer I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It was just absolutely absurd. So Dominic Toretto, as played by everyone's favourite Vin Diesel. I mean, I don't know why I said everyone's favourite, because, you know, he's average at best. So that's mean. So Dominic Toretto is the heroic badass, you know, he's a really, really tough guy, but he's, you know, and he seems like a really, really fucking vicious, he'll fuck you up if you try and get in his way, but he's really kind of a teddy bear sort of thing. Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel.
Yeah, Vin Diesel. The Toretto gang of speed racers / hijackers / hackers / sort of fucking superheroes at this point. A couple of years after their dalliance with, what was the cyber terrorist Cypher, played by Charlize Theron.
Yep.
I think in Furious, whatever it was.
Does anyone even know where the plot is at this point?
Yeah.
Because I fell out with it. I've watched them.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of cars.
So the Toretto crew, they're just doing what they're doing. You know, Dominic and his wife, I think it's Lizzie, played by Michelle Rodriguez. They're in their little farm somewhere in somewhere in the southwestern US, I'm guessing, with their kid. But then their old team show up, you know, people from their old team, bloody Tyrese Gibson and, you know, Jordana Brewster's, obviously Dom's sister, shows up, and Ludacris shows up.
I was going to say Ludacris, presumably.
Ludacris is in it, yeah.
Cashing his paycheck.
And they show up and they go like, oh, well, Dom, I know that you're kind of living the peaceful life, but older Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell, who was in some of the other films.
Oh, yeah.
And who has been helpful to the Toretto clan. He was on a mission, but he's been downed in Central America. Like, his plane crash landed and he's been held hostage. And the reason his plane crash landed is because he was actually trying to capture Cypher, because Cypher, old Charlize, she did something quite nasty and mean to Dom, and this is like essentially peace of mind payback. But Dom is informed that he was trying to capture Cypher, and he's just like, oh, well, like sleeping dogs lie. I'm not actually that bothered about it. The past is the past. Gruff Vin Diesel.
I've retired, man.
Yeah.
Living on my farm now.
That sort of thing. But then they just, you obviously know they're going to go like, okay, fuck it, let's just let's go and get Mr. Nobody, because he's because he's Kurt Russell. They don't say that, but it's just, let's go and rescue him because he's Kurt Russell. He can do
some acting. Let's go and find him.
Yeah, let's go and rescue him because he's Kurt Russell. That's it. If they had broken the fourth wall in that way, it would have actually improved the film. But so they go and they do this like absolutely insane and inane rescue mission somewhere in South America, and it's like, oh, Charlize Theron turns up a Cypher, and she's like, oh, say some spooky and malevolent lines, etc., etc. And then they find out that this kidnapping, this of Mr. Nobody, this thing involving Cypher, it actually has something to do with Dominic Toretto's estranged brother, Jacob Toretto, played by John Cena. So as you can tell, it just gets better.
Yeah.
Better and better and better. And yeah, this film, by the way, this film actually opens in 1989, where Dom and Jacob Toretto are both in their, I think they're late teens, early 20s at a push, and they're helping their dad compete in a drag race or some sort of, it's like they
got a pass, man. They not get on very well.
What?
The brothers.
Yeah, they don't get on very well.
Yeah, I guess that one.
And they don't get on very well because there's a tragedy.
But he's still going to go back for him because his blood is thicker than water.
There's a tragedy involving their dad, man, and they haven't seen each other for like 32 years.
Will it bring them back together again?
Well, this is the thing, because for 32 years, there's tragedy involving their dad, and they haven't seen each other since the tragedy involving their dad, and there's a lot of risk between these brothers because there's tragedy involving their fucking dad. And, and so John Cena, as Jacob Toretto, he's turned into the bad guy because he resents the fact that Dominic Toretto, as played by Vin Diesel, was the one who was always really, really valued by their fucking dad, and he wasn't the one who was valued by their dad, so he's got these daddy issues about it, and like he teams up with Cypher because he thinks that he's this scary cyber terrorist and he wants to be a villain, but he might still have some of the, he's like, you never own the Toretto name, and he says you never own the Toretto name, and that really hurts John Cena, and John Cena's like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna prove you wrong, and then all of a sudden they're in London and they're fucking running along like London bus stops and like bus rooftops and fighting each other. And there's another fight scene where John Cena rugby tackles Vin Diesel, and Vin Diesel's head like crashes clean through a brick wall, and yet he's unscathed miraculously. And
he's got a big head, to be fair.
Lots of loud, ultra loud, whizzy, bangy, shooty, shouty things that would kill the average person. At one point, they're going to space on a rocket propelled.
I remember
Chevy.
this in the trailer. Yeah, Fast and Furious going to space.
F9. It's something you just watch it for the set pieces.
Sure.
Because the set pieces, I'm not actually going to, you think I'm going to like absolutely angrily shit all over this film. It's not actually the case. The set pieces, they are hilarious. I was laughing, and obviously partially mockingly, but I was laughing my arse off at this film because I just found it really, really, and it was so lowest common denominator and such fan service for people who are allegiant to this series. I was just sat there laughing, just going, yeah, come on, fuck it, man. Okay, go ahead. And it did exactly what I expected it to do. But at no point did it make me roll my eyes. I just think like this film is completely and utterly predictable. It's just doing that as the sum. It's like such and such equals this. It just does that. And the one thing that I am annoyed at F9 about is the runtime. It should not be 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Ooh, yeah.
But
that's a lot of action set pieces.
Like about 10 or 12 minutes of that is the end credits with a little post-credit surprise. So it's really 2 hours and 10 minutes with loads and loads of end credits. Loads and loads of thank you, such and such.
Sure, yeah. Every VFX guy in the world got a paycheck.
Thank you, such and such. You fucking, grabbed hold of Justin Lin's cock when he came too hard about this set piece that he splurged $500 billion on. Oh, I'm sorry, was that offensive? But F9, it did what I expected to do. It is. I thought this is probably going to be the most absurd, mindless, parody level Fast and Furious film yet, and it pretty much is. Yeah, throughout the entirety of it, I fucking laughed my arse off. I thought the fight scenes were very, very entertaining. I didn't care about the characters, but the film didn't make too much of a demand for you to care about the characters. It's all very, despite the fact that the runtime is too long, it does, the screenplay gets its arse in gear. There's very, very little time spent, aside from the flashback scenes to the brothers' central strife in the present day narrative. There's very little time spent with emotional exposition. It's fairly crash, bang, wallop, whizzy whiz, shooty, spike me full of adrenaline. And yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's a bit of a laugh. So if you fancy a bit of a laugh, I'm not even that fucking au fait with the Fast and Furious series. There were some things I didn't even know what was going on, but I just found that even funnier. So yeah, ridiculous bollocks, but it put a smile on my face. And, so...
That's a lot more positive than I was expecting you to be about this film, actually, because I figured you were going to come here, and I already had a feeling that I'd seen the reviews.
I'm not saying it's good.
Yeah. I'd seen the reviews of old, and I already had a feeling that you might go for, a lot of people were complaining about the twist, etc. Then you said you were going to review F9. I thought, oh, wow. So it's going to be two films you absolutely hate in a row. It is kind of nice to know that you actually got some fun out of it.
Yeah, because this is the thing. I didn't hate.
The best you could hope for out of a Fast and Furious film is that it makes you laugh and you come out of it feeling like you've had a good time. That's that's popcorn, isn't it?
It did that 100%. If that's the intent of F9, then it's resolutely succeeded. It really did. It's fucking idiotic as hell, but it succeeded in that. 100%. It's a one-off watch. I'm not going to watch it again. But as a one-off watch, does it succeed in that capacity? Yes. But the thing I still don't think you can call this a negative week, because with old.
Yeah, you found some positives in that.
Yeah, old gets the halfway mark. It's not discardable. It just could have been so much more. So yeah, two films. They've both got something going for them.
I tell you what, two films that the critics are rubbishing currently that you've actually seen some genuine value in.
Oh yeah, no, they don't. Neither of them deserve outright rubbishing. They're just not fucking cream of the crop. But those only come along every now and again. You can't expect,
Sure, yeah, you can't expect everything.
You can't expect $1 million every time, because people are too fucking lazy. No, I'm joking.
Oh, cool stuff, man. Awesome. Well, you know what? I think, beers and a curry or something like that. Fast and the Furious 9, I might actually give it a go.
That will be
piss myself laughing.
Yeah. Get your good lady half, get a fucking curry in and some beers or a bottle of wine and sit that on and just laugh. It'd be a nice evening.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Good stuff. Okay, then. Well, that brings me on to TV of the week. Only one thing to talk about this week. And the first season of this came out in 2017 on Netflix, second season in 2019, and it appears to be on a bit of a break, which I'll get onto towards the end of the review, but this is called Mindhunter.
Mindhunter?
Yeah.
What you mean about the serial killer thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I like this show.
Oh, you've watched it, have you?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Excellent. Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, for those that haven't, let me do a little bit of plot setup here. I mean, this is based on Mindhunter inside the FBI's elite serial crime unit, which is a book written by John Douglas. And it's got an interesting genesis, actually. Apparently, Charlize Theron, funnily enough, handed a copy of this book to David Fincher because she wanted him to do something with it, maybe a film, something like that. And he instead handed it off to some TV series writers and became an executive producer on this as a show. So quite an interesting genesis.
John Douglas is sort of the pioneer of criminal profiling.
Right, yeah. So it's sort of loosely based on a true story as well, as best as I can tell, doing my background on it. But yeah, let's get some plot set up anyway. We first meet Holden Ford, who's played by Jonathan Groff. And he is a hostage negotiator for the FBI. And we first find him outside a hostage situation in the States in the 1970s. This is set between, I believe it's 1978 to 1980 for season 1 and season 2, 1980 onwards. But he's at this hostage negotiation. The police chief there is doing the classic thing of yelling at this guy through a megaphone. The hostage taker is standing outside the front of this building with a female hostage, and he's getting increasingly more and more aggravated by this annoying police chief. So Holden Ford turns up and he begins to try and calm everything down. He starts talking to the guy, starts saying, what can we get for you? I can get the police officers to move back a little bit. Don't move in your snipers, anything like that. Do you want to speak to your mother? Do you want to speak to your ex-wife? Manages to get his estranged wife to visit the scene. And he's starting to de-escalate the situation when it all goes horribly wrong and the hostage taker points a shotgun at his own head and blows it off in graphic fashion. We then get the credits roll. And we find Holden Ford talking to his boss at the FBI. And he's very downhearted about his record as a hostage negotiator so far. And his boss tells him, hey, don't worry, because here at the FBI, we only judge you basically based on how many hostages you've saved, which is all of them. How many of the murderers and hostage takers you've saved, we don't really care about. And this annoys Holden Ford very, very greatly. His boss actually has another offer for him as well, which is, look, why don't you come off the front lines and start working at the FBI Academy at Quantico and teaching young recruits hostage negotiation because you've had such a successful record? So he begins to teach, and he's got these classes of young FBI recruits that are very much hot-headed young men. A lot of them are straight out of the army. A lot of them basically see no value in what he's trying to teach, which is when you're doing hostage negotiation and de-escalation, you actually want to try and see things from the bad guy's point of view. You want to talk calmly to him. The whole point is to avoid a violent event. And he's very disappointed to find that these young recruits are just absolutely not interested. They'd much rather go straight in and blow the guy's head off. And he finds this attitude is sort of inherent to the FBI at this period of time. And it really, really winds him up. So he starts talking to other professors around him. And he finds another guy who's saying very similar things in his courses. And he takes the guy out for a beer one evening. And they're talking about essentially how crime and criminals have changed since the good old days, that it used to be about criminals performing terrible acts for monetary gain or for power and very simple things like that. Whereas these days they were starting to see a new breed of criminal, somebody that seems to be more damaged than this, except nobody seems to care about where the damage is coming from. They just simply care that this is a bad guy. If he's a bad guy, he needs to be taken down and good people need to be protected. It's a black and white morality, and isn't that a bad thing? While he's there, he runs into a young woman, Debbie, played by Hannah Gross. And she's a bit of a hippie and a student, and she's studying sociology. And they have a few drinks together, and she takes him dancing, and they end up sort of having a nicer passion together. And he's very, very interested in what she has to say about modern sociological concepts. It's primarily because they're not being taught at the FBI. These new ideas about damage from your past, your relationship with your mother, things like that, that it's gone on, it's not just Freudian anymore. It's now developed into a theory. And so he begins trying to convince his boss that perhaps the FBI need to be changing their methods. They need to start getting inside the heads of people that commit horrible acts and crimes. And he's eventually put on to FBI agent Bill Tench, who's played by Holt McCallany. Thank you. He's played by Holt McCallany. And he's set up the FBI Behavioral Science Division, and he is the only member of. That's how little the FBI care about this at all. But Bill says, hey, look, what I'm doing at the moment, I'm heading up the behavioral division, but we're not really doing much, to be honest, since it's just me. What I'm really doing at the moment is going around America on the road, speaking to groups of police officers, talking about modern behavioral methods of identifying criminals. Why don't you come with me? And along the way, you can help me out, and maybe we'll start putting something together in terms of behavioral science. So they go around to all these different colleges and schools and police stations. And eventually they end up running into a guy that's actually quite close to the Charles Manson case. And Holden Ford is absolutely desperate to meet Manson. And this guy says, hey, there's absolutely no way I can get you anywhere near Manson. There's no way. He's completely, he's the world's biggest criminal. I can't get you anywhere near him. What I can do, however, is introduce you to Ed Kemper. Mm-hmm. Now, Ed Kemper, for those unaware, was known as the co-ed killer. One of the first identifiable American serial killers. He was 6'9", 300 pounds, and he's played by Cameron Britton in this. And so Holden goes to interview Ed, uses his pass to get into the prison, and finds that Ed, to his surprise, is actually a very eloquent and quite a friendly and almost personable kind of guy.
Extremely relaxed and calm individual.
Yeah. And essentially sits down and says, hey, you know what? Treat me nice and I'll tell you what you want to know.
Have you seen the real interviews with him?
No, I haven't. No.
It's worth a watch.
Yeah. So Holden Ford and Bill Tench together start to get the idea that perhaps it will be useful moving forward as the crime investigation unit, as behavioral science unit, to start interviewing serial killers and put together this new form of science in the hope that eventually they can gather so much data on it that they might even be able to preempt serial killers before they've even acted. That there's certain behavioral constraints that they work within that can make you go, oh, so this is an organized killer, this is a disorganized killer, this guy's likely to do this guy's likely to take a trophy, so it's really the genesis and the beginning of what we now regard to be set in stone modern psychology in terms of the criminology aspect. So that's the bare plot summary anyway. I like this a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific show, man.
Primarily, I think it's got a nice visual style. It does that thing of occasionally. What I really liked actually in the first few episodes is that it's essentially a road movie.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of quick cuts between them on the road, them having to change a tire, them grabbing a drive-through burger. It's two guys out on the road having a good time. The characterization, I thought, was the thing that drove it strongest, particularly Holt McCallany's performance as Bill Tench.
Holt McCallany is a really good actor, man. He's very underrated.
What I love is that he plays it as this gruff, grouchy, older cop that's constantly smoking. I swear there's not a single scene in this show where he doesn't have a cigarette in his hands.
It suits him.
Yeah. But he also kind of plays it for laughs as well. There's a nice little bit of comedy and lighthearted.
He's the seasoned fella.
Yeah, Holden Ford is essentially the young buck running around, and he towards the end of season 1 as well, he starts to get quite egotistical with it. It starts to run away with him a little. Bill Tench has been round the block quite a few times. He's much more jaded as a cop.
With his buzz cut and all his lines.
Yeah, but he's also got like a kind of almost a fatherly aspect towards Holden. He's also trying to protect him a little bit, and he does see some value as they go through these interviews. He does start to see some value in what they're doing, and that they could eventually, they could save a lot of lives through this new form of psychology that they're creating. It's quite punchy. It's nicely edited. I love the soundtrack as well. This 1970s rock comes in bursts at various points.
Yeah, it's very effective.
I thought it was very, very effective. Yeah. It's got a really, really nice way of setting these dark, smoky rooms as well. Eventually, they go to visit Richard Speck at one point in Joliet prison.
He's lovely, man.
They do a nice thing where a lot of these serial killers, when they get them in a room and they start interviewing them, a lot of them are a lot nicer than they expected and a lot more understandable than they expected. And then they come across this guy who is just such an animal that almost makes their theory fall apart, because their whole thing is we need to view these guys as being human. And occasionally they come across one that is just so terrible that it actually makes for these really scary, intimidating Silence of the Lambs inspired kind of scenes.
Richard Speck was a nightmare.
Man. Nasty guy.
He was a complete fucking out of control maniac. But
yeah, I mean, this thing's been around for a while, and it's just one of those ones that I simply haven't got round to. And at the moment, like a lot of people, we're sitting back waiting for a few things to come on air. We're at that sort of summer slump period where all the big releases are through. The fall, October, November stuff is yet to come. There's a few series that I want to review at the moment that just simply haven't finished, and thereby I don't feel right reviewing them yet. So I thought I'd give it a go, and I found a little bit of a gem, really.
It is a gem, yeah.
I think it's nicely done. I had some of the acting in a couple of the early episodes I had a little bit of a problem with. I think it takes Jonathan Groff in particular a couple of episodes to get into the role. Initially, as I said earlier, he does play it kind of naive and he's the young buck with idealistic visions and dreams. And then later on, he becomes more egotistical. I felt like as an actor, it took him a couple of episodes to actually start nailing the dialogue. He's a little bit wooden in the first episode, but he picks up pretty quickly. Otherwise, I thought the performances were great. It's pacey, it moves on really well. And it's nice to, I'm not as big into the whole serial killer stuff as you are, but I mean, a lot of people are these days, true crime podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And I've watched a lot of docuseries and that kind of thing, but it's definitely made for those people, but it doesn't necessarily sensationalize it in the way that I hate a bad serial killer documentary for.
Absolutely, but
it does it in a more believable way.
Necessary preamble without actually mentioning names or anything. I think that when the scenes in which the two go and interview several really, really prolific and well-known serial killers. I actually think that the attention to detail of demeanor and physical appearance,
very well cast as well.
Yeah, like the physical appearances and the general sort of verbal delivery and just the mannerisms of a lot of well-known serial murderers. I think the show did a really, really cracking job of that.
Yeah.
And
it's got a nice sort of deftness to it, which is appreciated very much.
Yeah,
so.
no, Mindhunter's good, man.
So yeah, I found it enjoyable. You know,
it's a solid show.
Swallowed those 2 seasons pretty quickly. Like I said, it does seem to be on a bit of a break at the moment. I was reading earlier that David Fincher, in particular, does want to do season 3. I mean, he only directs. I think he's directed like 5 episodes out of the 20.
It's kind of show that he was fucking born to be involved with. David Fincher.
His sensibility really does fit it nicely. But I kind of liked his honesty as well. He essentially said, "Look, I really do want to do season 3, but at the moment I'm kind of burnt out because I've got so many projects on the go. So I will definitely get back to it, but 2 seasons is where it's going to sit for a while. So if you're like me and you're scratching around for something to watch and you didn't get around to it, it's a nicely done piece of work. And there's some performances in there that's put me onto some actors I wasn't aware of as well. So that's always nice. So a good piece of work. I liked it.
Yeah. No, nice one, man. Good shout out.
All right, then we better finish off with some trivia. The obvious thing to do would be serial killers, but then we've covered them so many times.
We've done that, yeah.
Yeah, we done several times.
Do it again.
And there's other podcasts for that as well. You know, as we said,
you get entire podcasts devoted to them. So
yeah. So I thought instead something we haven't covered on the podcast, and we definitely should. Off the back of your review of F9 and its focus on stunts, I thought I'd do trivia on stunts and stunt performers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really know how much of F9 was. I mean, obviously, a generous amount was computer augmented.
Sure.
Any people who did actual stunts in it, on the whole, I'm surprised they're still alive.
Well, I mean, any of them, to be honest. And one of the things actually when putting this together was I thought I'd find a load of sort of funny anecdotes about, the time this went wrong and all the time this went wrong. Actually, when stunts go wrong, it's pretty fucking awful.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty, actually.
It's not as lighthearted as I would have hoped for this trivia, but it is interesting.
It's pretty horrible, yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, let's start off with this. Stunt performers are actors. In fact, from a business perspective, they are members of the Screen Actors Guild, so they receive the same benefits and pay as other actors. But unlike other actors, they aren't eligible for Academy Award recognition. To remedy this, stuntmen organizations have created a forum to honor excellence in the field. The Taurus World Stunt Awards feature multiple categories from Best Fight Scene to Best Vehicle Stunt. Stunt coordinators who virtually co-direct elaborate stunt sequences are also recognized.
I'm glad that that's the case, but I don't think that that's right at all. I think like if you have a film,
it's the most dangerous role on set.
Yeah,
why shouldn't you be awarded?
If you have a film that that at least rests somewhat on the spectacular set pieces, the men and all women who were instrumental to the execution of those set pieces, you should absolutely have an Academy category for them.
Yeah, it really surprised me. I suddenly thought, no, there isn't one. Why?
I'm not saying. Some people might say this might be quite a strong word to use, but I think that's disrespectful. I really do. They deserve recognition. So, but I'm glad that they get some level of it. Anyway.
Burt Reynolds was a big force for actors performing their own stunts, which adds an element of excitement to his films. For example, knowing he's the one behind the wheel of the car in Smokey and the Bandit makes the film somewhat more watchable. However, Reynolds was vocal about a time he thought he went too far. In Deliverance, he actually fell down a waterfall, later calling it a dumb macho thing to do.
Well, Deliverance is... with it, you know the notorious scene in Deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
Bill McKinney actually started sort of he wasn't like Ned Beatty didn't know he was going to do this, but Bill McKinney was actually quite adept at sort of like
holding him down,
high school wrestling and sort of like martial arts, and he kind of went a little bit too far with it, and so yeah, that film is kind of marred in tales of people doing like physically excessive things just to make the dream come
especially
true.
I think back in the 70s, there wasn't
when nobody gave a fuck.
Yeah, there wasn't the same sort of health and safety considerations.
All that howling that Burt Reynolds did as Lewis breaking his leg. I mean, how manufactured was that? Did they just incorporate it? Because
probably the greatest stunt woman ever, Wendy Leach has performed stunts in many of the most legendary movies ever made, including the first 3 Superman movies, the first 3 Indiana Jones films, and The Omen. If that weren't enough, Wendy Leach was the stunt double for C-3PO in the original Star Wars film. She is in the C-3PO suit in place of actor Anthony Daniels in several action sequences in the film. Other credits of Wendy Leach include the movies Krull, the original Total Recall, doubling actress Sharon Stone, and Red 2. Wendy Leach was born into stunt work as her father was a stunt coordinator. She's married to legendary stuntman Vic Armstrong.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
So I bet you never heard of Wendy Leach before, but you've definitely seen her.
Yeah, I can't say I have, and I'm saddened that I haven't. But,
I like it when we get to do that in the trivia, to sort of put someone's name out there. So I know we have got the biggest audience in the world or whatever, but yeah, Wendy Leach has done some fantastic work.
Good old Wendy, man.
The Back to the Future trilogy was home to some serious on-set accidents, as evidenced by the brutal injury one stuntwoman suffered while filming the second installment's iconic hoverboard chase scene. But it was during the making of the third film that one of the trilogy's stars was almost killed on set due to a disastrously mishandled stunt. In a decision whose consequences really should have been obvious, director Robert Zemeckis and actor Michael J. Fox decided that Fox would simply hold the rope around his neck during a hanging sequence in order to avoid actually choking. As most people blessed with common sense could likely guess, the maneuver failed and Fox quickly began genuinely choking during the filming of the brief scene wherein he is strung up by the villainous Mad Dog Tannen. Fox lost consciousness during the shoot and had to be resuscitated on set, when an extra luckily recognised what was happening. But that didn't stop Zemeckis from using the take in the finished film. So there you go. When Back to the Future 3's on a Sunday afternoon, as it always bloody is, and that hanging scene, Michael J. Fox was genuinely fighting for his life.
And Zemeckis was just like, yes, yes.
We got the shot to him in his hospital bed.
Yeah.
We got it, Michael. We got it.
Boy, this isn't dysfunctional at all, is it?
You're okay though, right? Yeah.
You're okay. You're okay.
And my last fact here, and again, this isn't a happy one to end it on, but this one blew my mind and I had to put it in. It's quite long, so I'm going to go on for a bit, but you'll see why in a second. Olivia Jackson has stunted on some of the biggest films of the 2010s. She worked on the sci-fi blockbuster Star Wars The Force Awakens, and she doubled for Charlize Theron and Rosie Huntington-Whiteley in Mad Max Fury Road. Tragically, her amazing career was cut short during a scene for Resident Evil The Final Chapter. Filling in for Mila Jovovich, the British stuntwoman was riding on a motorcycle taking part in one of the movie's chase scenes. As she sped down a street, there was a camera up ahead connected to a mechanical crane. The plan was for the camera to swoop over Jackson as she drove by. But as the stuntwoman put it, writing for Glamour, I did exactly that, but the camera did not. Unfortunately, the camera didn't move, and Jackson ploughed straight into a huge chunk of metal. The resulting crash was absolutely devastating, degloving Jackson's face, severing an artery in her neck and causing her brain to both bleed and swell. And that's not even mentioning the nerves ripped from her spine, the numerous broken bones, and her damaged lung. Not my funnest day on set, the stuntwoman wrote after waking up from a 2-week medically induced coma.
Whoa. What's her name again?
This is Olivia Jackson.
And she's still alive.
She is. It keeps going. Jackson was then forced to learn how to walk again, but even worse, she was forced to have her now paralysed arm amputated. However, despite all these horrific setbacks, Jackson has maintained an incredibly optimistic outlook. If I was asked a year ago how I'd react if I lost my arm, she wrote, I'd have answered, wail, scream, cry. But we are all stronger than we know. If we believe in ourselves, we can do anything we want. That is one tough human being right there. I mean, holy shit.
That is one extraordinarily tough human being.
I know that's not a particularly positive one to end on. I was just reading that earlier with my hair on fire going, holy fucking... I do remember it being in the news that a stuntwoman was injured quite badly on a Resident Evil set, but I didn't know the extent of her injuries. You're having your face degloved. It's just unbelievable. But there you go. Yeah, that's my not particularly fun, but hopefully quite interesting stunt and stuntwoman and stunt trivia.
Indeed.
That brings us to the end of our free podcast this week. Thank you so much for listening, guys, as per usual. We're off to record the premium episode now. Liam, I believe you've got a couple of extra takes.
Do indeed, yep.
What are you extra taking this week?
I'm going to talk about Elia Kazan's Face in the Crowd from 1957, which is a really, really brilliant satire that I know a few people out there will know about it, but I just fancy giving it a shout out. And then a good old French film from 2008, written and directed by Olivier Marchal, MR73, with the inimitable Daniel Auteuil, who's one of my favourite actors. And then we're going to talk about Winston for a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't done an actor special in a while, and we were having a discussion earlier, and we thought, you know what, we've actually never gone through some of our favourite films from good old Ray Winston.
Ray Window.
Good old Ray.
You fucking slag.
Bettner.
Yeah.
Bettner.
Cunt.
Yeah. That guy. Believe it or not, he hasn't been a horrible, mean, vicious gangster in some of his roles, and we're going to be discussing those.
Indeed.
And we're going to be discussing some of the vicious, mean gangster roles as well. Because
Indeed we are.
he has done so many. So yes, if any of that sounds good to you, please do check out cinementalist.com for our link to our Patreon page. You can follow us on Twitter at Cinementalcast, and you can follow Liam at
the Movies at Wacko Jacko's Flicks.
And hope to see you in the premium stuff. If not, free one next week. Anything to add, Liam?
Thank you very much, people. I hope you enjoy the content and keep watching good stuff out there. And yeah, take it easy.
Okie dokie, guys. Yeah, have a good one. And either see you in the next one or see you next week. Take it easy.